Hello, everyone. Welcome to ForcedToPod. My name is Saxon, but you can call me Sax. Joining me tonight, I have the man who knows no stranger nor pepper too spicy. 2 nights back to back. Nick, how's it going, man?
Good. The second leg of the doubleheader is much less tired.
Yeah.
I did have an energy drink about 4 hours ago, though, so I'm probably be up all night, but that's okay because I'm watching the 24-hour of Daytona,
There you go.
the endurance race tonight. So
It's the least you could do. Could do in unison with those guys who are going to be staying up doing their thing.
Right. Well, my favorite part's the overnight stretches anyway, because there's way less commercials. The commentators get way more. They're way off the rails. There's nothing to talk about. They've been talking for 12 hours. And so they just get into silly conversation. You learn about drivers that, you don't hear about a lot. It's fun. It's a good time.
Now, are you telling me that the advertisers are not vying for that like 3 a.m.
for the 3 a.m. Eastern time? Yeah, no, not really. Which is good because
like the Super Bowl ads.
Yeah, NBC and Peacock are really horrible about how many ads they do during sporting events, but that's a different conversation.
I gotcha.
They do it.
And as promised on our last pod, we have a special guest joining us this evening, ForcedToPod fan numero uno, the man who can tear up any dance floor, and I have witnessed it in person. That thing was literally on fire. Zach, thanks for being here, man. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me. This is a dream come true.
Let's go.
Long-time listener, first-time joiner.
I know. Yeah. That's what. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Man, I was kind of breaking it down at the end of last night's pod. So if anyone got to that point, I say last night, but this is going out next week, so I need to stop referencing that and say last week. When we were talking about it, I said Zach gave me like the tiniest bit of like a celebrity moment, and also the awesome moment of like my wife looking at me like, what the hell was that? Like they're like, what is this life? And so it was awesome walking up and stuff. And so I did go into everything on that, but I appreciate you guys being welcoming, allowing us to sit with you at the wedding. And the vibes were awesome. So yeah, man, it's awesome to have you here.
Yeah.
I think speaking of that, I think we talked about it before, but I told Sax before the wedding, I was like, hey, just so you know, my buddy Zach is literally going to be the first person on the dance floor. And then as soon as the DJ started playing, I locked eyes with Zach and he immediately comes on the floor. And I'm like, all right, yep, called it. I was like, he was the first one before everybody.
And then the DJ made a fatal flaw. He didn't read. I don't know what was going on, but I was outside almost to the car. Like we were leaving. We had to we had to get pre-picked up, and we heard, was it wobble?
No, it was a Cupid Shuffle.
Cupid's Shuffle, that's right.
Or Cha-Cha Slide or Cupid Shuffle or something.
One of the all-time, gotta have it on your playlist ones that I go way too hard at. And it played, and Dick texted me and said, hey, they're playing Cha-Cha Slide, get back in here. And I looked at Emily and I kind of gave her that look like, I've got to go, right? And she was like, if you need to go, you can go. Like, it's so funny. She plays into it. She understands. She's like, I get it. Go itch that scratch.
That's awesome. Yeah, there's not many. I don't know. It's such a unique thing, like the whole dance floor thing, because it's unfortunate. You get like 75% of people are like, okay, I'm not touching that. Like whatever. Like, or at least they go in saying that, right? And then it's people like yourself who get out there and then just have like this reckless abandon. Yeah, like people crack up and like, or whatever, but it's not like laughing at that person. Typically, right. That's not. It's like, oh, when you're seeing someone in a joyful situation, just tearing up the dance floor, like doing what we're there to do, right? Celebrating whoever we're there for. Like it brings like just a little bit of spark of like humanity and joy. So man, I appreciated that. So that was sick.
Yeah, so, that's always the idea. That's I like the more formal the setting, the better, or the less I know the people, the better. Because I love talking to someone, making a connection, and then being like, "Oh, this is a normal guy," and then just see me absolutely destroy ushers, and then
literally
be like, oh,
doing the worm,
It'd be like, okay, yeah, I could do that too. I can get out there.
Yeah. It's kind of like the classic being in middle school. Like we had, I don't know about you guys, but growing up, like our middle schools and high schools, they had dances every chance they got to. Like every home football game, there was a dance afterwards. Like, I don't know. They would make stuff up and be like, oh, like, Arbor Day. I'm like, bet we're there. Like, everyone's dressing like trees. We're there. Like, we're good. And that's all it took, man. We were doing all the time. So you go in and they put, they do the little Coke cups of like Sprite and Coke and, Dr. Pepper or whatever. And you go slam Sprite, and then Usher's would come on, and you'd sprint back in the gym, and everyone's just pouring sweat. And like, I don't know, man, it was a good time. So,
oh yeah.
Just kind of brought me back, man. So, so a little bit of housekeeping I'd like to get out of the way. Then we get to dive straight into tonight's topics. Here at ForcedToPod, we want to connect with you, keep the conversation going outside. We're in the new year, 2025. We're trying to connect, reach some more people, and want to do that. So if you would, search ForcedToPod on your favorite social media, whether that's Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, for however long it stays around. You may see some of the clips from these episodes, things of that sort on there. And then finally, if you want the most direct way to have a conversation with us, to see some of the things we're talking about, some of the things we reference, whether it's YouTube clips or pictures of weird GIFs that we're given, things of that sort. We don't do a whole lot of editing into the podcast at this point, but we will put those things up on our Discord. So you can join by going to bit.ly/ForcedToPod Discord. All one word there, all lowercase. So Nick, you had brought up and wanted to talk about this. This is a topic that, or this is something that I was sort of familiar with, but I guess I wasn't familiar with like just the scale of it. And so you said you wanted to talk about Indiana's high school basketball and the gyms, like the incredible amount of like awesome gyms we have. So,
I can't remember how it first came up. But now that we're pretty full swing into basketball season, football season's over for almost everybody. Unfortunately, it's not over for Kansas City, but whatever.
Hey, by the time this comes out, we got to believe, man. We got to believe that it's going to be.
Go Birds. Go Bills. Go somebody. You know what? Actually, at this point, I know we're maybe saving the football talk for later, but like I'm over the Lions loss. And if the Commanders win it all, that makes me feel better. So like even IU football this season, it was the only two teams that IU football lost to were Notre Dame and Ohio State. And those were the two teams that played in the national championship. So if there was a silver lining for having the two worst fan bases in the national championship, it was that. And also that Michigan beat Ohio State. Go Blue. But
go Blue.
Like I said,
by proxy, the transitive principle, they beat Ohio State.
Yeah, so exactly. Yeah, Michigan back-to-back national champions.
Correct, exactly. Claim one. People have claimed a national championship for way less. That's all I'm saying.
Absolutely.
So anyway, we were talking about basketball gyms or something, and I remembered that there was like a crazy amount of the nation's largest basketball gyms, high school basketball gyms, are in Indiana. So I looked it up. 14 of the 16 largest high school gymnasiums are located in the state of Indiana. To add to that, 10 of the top 12 are in Indiana. The first top 5 are located in Indiana. Number 6 goes to Texas, 7 and 8, Indiana, 9, Illinois, 10, 11, 12, Indiana. And it's like, we hear it all the time, especially if you watch Pacers basketball, you watch basketball in this state, Purdue, whatever. You hear like basketball, we grow basketball here. In 49 other states, it's just basketball. In Indiana, it's different. All those crazy slogans, everybody's claiming John R. Wooden, he was the guy, he's from Indiana, Larry Bird, all that stuff. But like, this really kind of puts that into perspective of how not crazy it is to talk that much shit about how basketball is so important in Indiana. The largest high school gymnasium in the country holds 8,400 people. And it was built in 1959. Granted, I'm pretty sure it was renovated not that long ago. But yeah, in 2020. 8,424 people are watching kids at Newcastle High School play basketball. It's like, I don't even know where Newcastle is. I couldn't point it out on the map.
There is nothing else to do in Newcastle other than go to high school basketball games.
Well, number 2, Seymour, Indiana, with a very similar and staggering capacity of 8,228 seats. And
That's
we talked
nuts.
about it yesterday, I think, maybe before we recorded or last week, whatever. The university that Saxon and I both worked at was an NAIA school. Their women's team was like national champion several times. The men's team was pretty good as well. And the seating capacity at the brand new gym area at Marion was like a little over 3,000, I think. So you're packing 60% more people in a high school gym in Southport, Lafayette, Gary, Michigan City, Elkhart, Marion, Muncie, East Chicago, Seymour, and Newcastle. It's crazy. And like I go to this can sound weird, but let me qualify it. I go to several 7th grade basketball games in Plainfield because my child is a cheerleader. So I'm obligated to be at the basketball games because that's where the cheerleading happens. But we like are getting into it. You know what I mean? Granted, there's nowhere near 8,000 people. It's usually about 30 or 40, and it's all parents.
Right.
But yeah, the parents are yelling. I mean, like heckling the refs, screaming about travels and missed calls and all kinds of nonsense. I'm like, it's 7th grade, guys. We need to settle down.
It just
But we had
means
a good
more.
time. And the team's good. They keep winning.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's why I was telling you last night. I was guessing that Kokomo High School's Memorial Gymnasium would be on there, sitting at 5,224 seating capacity. Doesn't even touch the top 20. I don't know if you have the actual list of
it's this Wikipedia page cuts off at 12.
I gotcha.
And then it just says there's a line that says 14 of the 16 largest are in Indiana.
I gotcha. I just found that amazing. So I used to have a blast. My grandpa, when he was alive, he would referee all sorts of basketball games. So he was a pastor, but then he would referee on the side, and so he got to know a lot of people that way and kind of like bring them in, do whatever, outreach, whatever. But he loved high school sports in Howard County, Indiana. And so we would go all over the place, Northwestern High School, Western, whatever. We'd be at all those games. I remember being young, and he went to Kokomo or whatever it was called at the time before they consolidated everything. So he loved going to Kokomo Wildcat games, and we would go, and me and my cousins would just play in the outside area, and like it went so high up, so you could go up to the nosebleeds and just like feel like you're above everyone else and like have this autonomy. And we're in the same gym, so he probably could see us like wherever we were, but it felt like we were so far away, so it was enormous. So to hear it wasn't on there, that these other places are bigger, that's crazy.
Here's 2 more quick ridiculous notes that I didn't see. Previously, the largest high school gym in the country belonged to Anderson High School before it closed in 2011. It doesn't say why. It was 8996, 9,000 people. And then here's a separate article I found from last year, back in July. 27 of the nation's 35 largest high schools are in Indiana gyms. Only 8 of the top 35 largest high school gyms are outside of this state. Like, I didn't even know we had 30. I didn't even know we had 27 high schools. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right, yeah.
I know there's more than that, but like, yeah, I can name 4 maybe.
Yeah. If they would have said, "Hey, give me your top 30 Indiana high school basketball stadiums," you'd have been like, "Well, I mean, I didn't even know there were 30." So
yeah. But knowing these stats, you could just pick 30 from the state, and you're probably pretty close.
You're going to be better than a coin flip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy. It's different. And then you got, teams like Indiana University who are disappointingly average in the last decade or so. Unfortunately, Purdue Boilermakers are pretty dang good at basketball, and I hate it a lot. But shout out to like James Evans, one of my 2 Purdue friends, him and Neil Smith.
Well, I did look up. Seymour, Indiana is about an hour south of Plainfield, hour north of Louisville.
Yeah. No,
so
I'm
we
familiar
could hit
with,
a game at
with
some
Seymour.
point.
Yeah, that's where John Mellencamp's from. I'm pretty sure he used to live there at least.
Yeah,
I didn't. The name was familiar, but so I was trying to figure out where it was to see how much it was. And yeah, it's about right in the middle.
Yeah, it's not too far from Bloomington where I went to
Gotcha.
school. So, yeah, it's still. I mean, you know where Muncie is, Marion. I've been to Elkhart, stuff like that. But it's. I don't know. I didn't know we were that interested in watching 15-year-olds play basketball.
Hey,
I always did wonder though why they always called us a basketball, like they're like Indiana's a basketball state, and I'm like I never got that vibe growing up,
Yeah.
and
Well,
that reinforces it.
Let's see, Martinsville High School gym capacity.
it's about 4.
It's a John Arwood 5,200.
Jeez.
I've never seen it full, but
Right.
Yeah.
Which is poor. It's poor. It's terrible compared to the 8,600 or whatever.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's a good sized gymnasium. Still bigger than Marion.
Right.
And it's
crazy.
not even top 35 or whatever.
That's insane. And I think something else that plays into the whole, like Indiana being a basketball state is, you look at all these other states that have so much more success, whether it's on like a professional level or at the college level, right? And bringing that up. And I know that Purdue as of late has some pretty good success, pretty good teams, like you just mentioned. Indiana in the past, I don't know anything about like Notre Dame's teams, anything of that sort, but I don't know if they've ever had a good basketball team that's gone deep. Maybe I'm missing something. Butler's had some good teams in the past.
Yeah.
Dude, he was so close to hitting that half-court shot.
I know.
I remember watching that.
Yeah.
My dad's he was a huge Coach K fan. So my dad has always been a Duke fan. So we were watching that and it would always fall directly on spring break. Like it felt like it was like we were on spring break. We go up to visit family in Minnesota almost every year, and we'd sit in the hotel eating pizza from this local pizza place in Duluth, Minnesota. Shout out to Sammy's. And then we would watch the national championship game. I remember watching it in the hotel and thinking like he was nailing that shot, and it's so disappointing that it did not go in. But
he had a pretty good career.
That was a dream run though by Butler.
Oh yeah,
that was a dream.
That was sick. So I want to kind of like segue this into our second topic though. So we're talking about high school basketball being big in Indiana. I really enjoyed going to basketball games, like growing up, being in school. I don't know if you guys, if that was like a social gathering for us, all of the, sports. I played until my sophomore year. That tore up my knee, and I didn't play after that. I was rehabilitating and stuff. But
obligated to be at most of the games because I was in the jazz band. So
yeah, that'll get you. But Zach, you had mentioned that you kind of wanted to talk a little bit about the state of the NBA and things of that sort. So like what even is like, just, I'm out of the loop other than what I see, like some of my friends who are still in Indy post, and they live, close, like they live in Fountain Square. So it's not that far. Right. And they'll go to games and stuff impromptu, and they're big Pacers fans, but yeah.
Yeah.
Tom and Hannah, they like to go. So where are we at? What's the state of the NBA nowadays? And like, it seems like a little dire.
Yeah. So I was the same way. Like especially regular season basketball the last couple of years, I just lost interest in watching it. And I didn't really know why. It seemed like, I don't know, the games didn't seem to matter, but it wasn't like, it just was a little thing where you're like, yeah, they play 82 games, but you could still go to Bankers Life at the time. I think they renamed it. It's not Bankers Life anymore, but Gamebridge. That's right. You could go there and watch the Pacers, and you would see our stars every night. We would be 19 and 57, and they're going to be out there playing. Like that was how it was even up till recently. Well, the only reason I got into it is because I'm a little bit of a degenerate gambler. And as NFL season grows down, nothing major, I'll throw $5 on a dream parlay. Why not? It's fun. Make some games that maybe you don't have any skin in the game. Like as a Cowboys fan, I don't have to really worry too much this time of year of seeing them. So I have to have something to fill my time. And so, I don't have to, but I'm going to do it.
You probably see them if you travel to Cancun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Freaking hit them in who just got fined, Joe Milton. or Joe
Mixon?
Mixon.
Oh, Mixon.
Joe Mixon.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. But anyway, with the NBA, that's why I watch it. I watch it for gambling purposes. And there's a small but large minority on X who like are coming at the NBA right now. Like they are furious because they've got parlays in, and it's 90 to 75 in the third quarter, so a 15-point game. And they're furious because the teams have gotten to the point where the team that's down 15 will just pull their starters out. They won't play the rest of the game. And my views on it, not so much from the gambling side, but from the competitor and the athlete side, is I don't like what it's done to the league. They essentially, what they do now is try to keep the teams that think they can compete. They pre-decide before the season starts that they're going to they either have a shot or they don't. They try to keep their record around 500 and then wait for that home stretch to go in the playoffs. From a business side, I get that. But from a person who, like, as a kid, I do remember watching the NBA when people were like going crazy and competing, and
Reggie.
Charles Barkley was,
Jordan,
throwing people
Shaq,
around. Jordan,
Kobe.
Shaq. Yeah. See them getting after it on a random Thursday, when they're 19 and 52 and they're still out there throwing bows. And now you got guys who are like, well, I don't know. We have to score 15 points. So might as well just sit down, and getting paid more money than ever.
Load management.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the thing a few years back. They started that Kawhi Leonard, right? It started with him with,
And LeBron. Yeah.
Well, LeBron. Yeah.
But in LeBron's defense now, he's 75 years old. He can't play.
Right.
I mean, he can, but not for the whole season. He can't play 48 minutes a night.
Right. So I get all the different reasons. I get the business side. I get this, that, and the other. But it is one of those times where it's one of those things where, like, you'll watch it and you'll be like, man, I remember when I was a kid and I'd watch that and it was really cool and this, that, and the other. And I don't know. It just sucks that, like, once NFL's over, like, that's all we got now, because, like, the NBA is just a shambles of a league.
Let me talk to you about race cars. Race cars.
Lay it on me.
We got no, I'm just kidding. Well, I mean, race car season is starting this weekend.
To be able to fill in,
yeah. And then February 16th, Daytona 500, baby. And then shortly after that, IndyCar is going to fire up, and then we're going to get Formula One. Then we're going to have 3 motorsports running all at the same time. You can toss a little MotoGP in there if you want to watch motorcycles. Formula E is always racing. They got the electric cars.
I don't know if my marriage can handle it. I don't think my marriage can handle that.
Yeah.
Well, also hold on. I text somebody about it earlier. I text James today. We are 72 days away from the Masters tournament in Augusta.
Okay. All right.
You're back in. I got Zach back on board.
Let's go.
We're back in.
Well, we were talking. I think we talked about it yesterday. Like, that's why I got so fired up watching the Olympics this year.
Yeah.
The basketball team, because it was like
it meant
something.
100% all out. They were playing for something.
They even said it in the broadcast of the gold medal game. It was like LeBron passed to KD, passed to Steph, and they're like, "When are you ever going to be able to say that again?" Like, never.
Right.
And that was like those guys playing basketball with a purpose, and not just like there's no load management. It's like whoever's playing the best, they're going to be in there. They're going to give their best effort. Right. And I mean, it went for all the other countries too. I mean, Serbia, France obviously put up a hell of a performance in the gold medal game. The only reason they didn't win is because Steph Curry is not a real human being.
Nope.
Correct.
So yeah, that kind of between that and then the Pacers sort of disappointing playoff run.
Right.
I kind of, the beginning of the season, I just haven't been that into it. Of course, the Pacers had a bunch of injuries. They are battling through like staying above 500, even though they started pretty bad. They're not pulling their starters unless, they're injured kind of thing. So, and then they did just beat the Spurs in Paris, ironically.
No kidding.
Today by almost 40 points. So,
right. And Wemby was playing. It's not like he was sitting out.
Yeah. No, there was, he was tired though, which leads me to my next point. I think Wembanyama is a average level NBA talent, which, let me explain, NBA talent is unreal.
Right.
Okay. If you're an NBA caliber player, you're something special.
Disclaimer, we're all Midwest dads. All right. We got it.
I haven't hit a 3-pointer properly maybe in my entire life. I think he has average NBA talent. He's just huge.
Yes.
Just very, very
Yeah.
tall.
Well,
I could be proven wrong, but the couple of games that I've watched with him playing, I haven't been that impressed by the things he does, because the impressive thing he does is it would be impressive for somebody with 6'6", not 7'4".
right.
Like his
Yeah.
wingspan is 13 feet or whatever.
Right.
I don't know. It's
It
kind of the
doesn't-
same way I felt about Zach Edey playing at Purdue, but he is really good at basketball too. So
right. All with
I
the
mean,
caveat.
I'm not saying they're not good. I'm not saying he's not a
Yeah.
good player. I'm saying he's hyped up a lot more than I think he should be. But what do I know?
Well,
I'm
it's
not
because
an
he's
NBA scout.
it's because what, he's 7'5" and he can and he shoots like 10 threes a game. That's why he's
Yeah.
exciting. I'm like,
Right.
yeah, I would hope, again, he's better.
Well, and he gets a bunch of blocks. Obviously, he's getting blocks. He can stand anywhere on the court and block you.
Yeah, if you are in position to score, he can block you. That's just how it works.
I think so. The Pacers played the Spurs twice this week in Paris, and on Tuesday or Thursday or whenever the first game was, I was watching some of it. He blocked like Andrew Nemhard or TJ McConnell or somebody. These guys are like 6'1",
right.
Tiny. And and the announcers was like, "Oh, what a block!" I'm like, "Are you kidding me? I could have blocked that. I can't jump 5 inches. Like, come on."
Yeah. What's always amazing, like anytime I see a clip of him and Jokic for that much, is like these guys are so tall, so big, so like athletic at the same time.
Yeah.
And they don't just go down like the first time that, like, I don't know. I feel like I've known so many like super lanky guys, like just from when I did play basketball, things of that sort. And they always were just super uncoordinated. They were just very easy to kind of like body get into. And I feel like the guys who separate themselves like that, like what Wemby has done, is just in the extra work he does to get get that center of gravity, get his balance, things
that's
of
true.
that sort.
He's extremely agile and mobile for somebody who's 7'4". I mean, like I said, I'm not saying he's bad at doing stuff. I just
no, but
don't think he's as good as everybody says.
The sports leagues do this.
Hypes. Yeah.
Every time someone new, anytime someone comes in, like that's their cash cow. It kind of ties into what I'm talking about with the NBA, like where it gets like ultimately at the end of the day, there's sports, like fundamentally sports, and then there's business. The NBA, the NHL, the NFL, all of these sports leagues ultimately are still businesses. And so having somebody like Wemby, especially from a market like France, it's good to have him there and in the spotlight. And he is good. He, like, don't get me wrong, but it's just when people talk about every player like they are the greatest of all time now because they want to keep engagement up. It's like, all right, so yeah, he's a great basketball player. But I mean, if I was 7'4" and a freak athlete and could dribble and did it my whole life, I'd be really good too. That's right. A lot of ifs, but
yeah.
But I think he also strikes a perfect vertical that I think every professional league's trying to dig into, which is the international piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like not only like LeBron's incredible, like Jordan was incredible, like these players are incredible, but they also were American in an American league.
It's like,
and so
they're doing it heavy in baseball with Shohei Ohtani.
Exactly.
Like he's drawing crazy Japanese fans. Like the Dodgers just signed, I don't remember his name, a very, very popular Japanese player, I think, just got signed to LA. And they're like, yeah, this is going to expand our market a lot. Like, I get it, but like, just play baseball. God damn it.
Yeah. Amen.
I don't know, dude. Like I'm all in, all for, like, let's actually find the best players in the world. You know what I mean? And do that. Sure. And I think there's a lot of logistical aspects to, I don't know. You get a guy, and maybe I'm super off base. There's probably people who, I mean, I know there are people who are far more educated on this subject that could answer this. But like, if you got a guy that's like 85% the player of this caliber, and they play the same position, I guess in my head I'm thinking even baseball now, like, that you brought that up, but like but then you don't have to jump through so many hoops and stuff, bring them international, things of that sort. You can scout them locally, right? Like you can go see them in whatever game they're playing in high school, or if they're in college doing that kind of stuff. Their family is rooted here. There's like all the logistics of trying to bring someone in. Like if someone's from America, I wonder like how that would even be, like having them play in the farm leagues, right? Like single A, double A, triple A, but like you invest so much money to bring someone over from Japan or something of that sort. Like, I wonder what that even looks like, right? Like to have someone come over, but then they do like the the farm leagues getting up to it. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. I would say it would look something like what soccer has done. Now, obviously, soccer logistically, because of how simple of a game it is in terms of
easy.
You know what I mean. It's not physically.
If we ever garner an overseas fan base in Europe, you're going to get torched.
No, listen. This is not a. I am not the meathead that hates soccer. Okay, it's not what I am. But I'm saying soccer has done that like globally. Like you can go anywhere and there's soccer. There's a soccer farm. Like you can go to Brazil, you can go to Africa, you can go places, and soccer is truly an international sport. And I think, kind of to your point, Sax, that's what the NFL is trying to do. Is in all these leagues are trying to. It starts with players. So you have a guy from that was born in Africa, born in France, born in Germany, that comes here usually to play college ball because they get recruited to come here and play. They're usually just freak athletes, something like that, maybe rugby. They bring them over here, and now there's a connection to that country. And then over time, it builds that base up, and then maybe it starts getting offered locally in a club way, and this, that, and the other. And I think that's what they're trying to do with like Germany next year. The NFL's got a lot of games. The NBA obviously is in Paris right now. So I think they're trying to do that more, trying to get that more global outreach like that. But like you said, just when you get in sports like that, like the NFL, and then you got all the business side of things, who owns the TV contracts, how do you stream them? It's a lot. But I think they're just trying to slowly get in there.
Yeah,
I can't get started on the streaming.
Well, that was literally going to be my next point. I was like,
okay.
I was going to ask you guys, how do you even watch an NBA game at this point?
Oh,
because other than consuming YouTube video recaps of games, and to be honest, I do that with NFL as well, and we do pay for like Red Zone or whatever, like through YouTube, right. Like whatever you can buy the individual.
Red Zone's the only way to watch.
Oh yeah,
NFL.
Red Zone is
the quad box.
Oh,
Octobox, dude. The first Octobox because the season hits me different.
Dude,
Nick's been making fun of me recently for my big old TV, or the TV I bought not being big enough. I needed a bigger TV for the Octobox. Like how was I possibly going to fit that on a 65-inch screen instead of a 77
in my basement if I don't have a 77-inch TV?
Yeah.
Red Zone is the way to. I mean, that's been a game changer. First year with it, Nick, and there is no better $12.99 I've ever spent in my life on YouTube TV. I mean, I do it all day.
I'm pretty, as Walker would say in this situation, I think it's applicable. I am very privileged in that, like, one, I'm not really interested in watching other NBA teams really besides the Pacers. So I have a buddy who is kind enough to let me use his login for his TV service. It's like regular cable TV essentially, and it has Bally Sports, so I can watch all the Pacers games that are aired at least.
Right.
If you want to watch anything not local, because all the Pacers games are blacked out here on NBA TV, you can watch. I have a buddy who signed up for NBA TV. He loves watching the other games. I'm like, I don't care that much about the league. There are players I like, but I don't care that much. With football, my dad has Red Zone. I just log into his account, his Xfinity account on the Red Zone app or whatever on my TV and just watch it that way. For most of the motorsports things, for Formula One, I have a buddy who has Formula One TV he subscribes to every year, and he gives me his login so I can just watch that. If not, there are certain websites you can use to stream live events. That's usually how I watch stuff like UFC, so I don't have to pay for ESPN Plus and then pay $90 to watch a UFC fight. Or I'll go to a friend's house and we'll like split the cost or whatever.
Yeah.
Peacock I use to watch, like that's what I'm watching the race on right now, the Rolex 24. Up until this year was how I watched IndyCar. IndyCar is moving to Fox which is kind of good because Fox also does most of the NASCAR races. So that I will just have to use somebody's cable login. But like baseball, if I wanted to watch any of the baseball, all I can watch is what's on TV locally. I'm not paying for MLB Pass or whatever it's called. Like NHL, most of the games on NHL you can see on ESPN Plus, but I cut ties with my Disney Plus package like a long time ago. So if I got to find a stream for it, kind of thing. If it's not local, it's a nightmare. Like I said, I'm
you
thankful.
Said so many service providers in the last like 3 minutes, and it's making my head spin.
Like I said,
I was totaling it up
that I have
monetary wise. I was like 100, 200, 400.
Well,
It's 8. I know you're not having to pay for it directly, but overall.
Well, so at the risk of implicating myself for doing it, I'm not doing anything illegal. This is not illegal, but I do run a Plex server that certain people have access to, and they may or may not share their logins with me based on the access that I provide them to Plex. So it's kind of like a bartering system I have with my friends that I'm able to watch all this. Worst case scenario, I'd have to pay for a couple. I pay for Peacock, but it's like part of my cell phone plan for some reason. And it's only like $2 or $3 or $4 a month, something like that. And then don't forget about Netflix. Don't forget about
Amazon
Prime, Max, all this
NFL
stuff.
NFL Network, if you don't have that included.
Big Ten Network, if you want to watch the 3 basketball games a year.
Yeah.
Luckily for most of the football games that I watch, they're on Fox or whatever, or the IU home games I just go to, most of them. Again, privileged to have parents who have season tickets so I can just go. But yeah, it's crazy. There's too much.
Like a hellscape.
It used to be you could get like, what's the service called? It's not Fubo or whatever, but Sling. You used to be able to buy Sling, and they had like a la carte packages where you could pick certain sports networks, and they cut that out now. All the licensing agreements with these 3 or 4 major telecom companies are all dog shit now because they're running monopolies, and nobody wants to say anything about it because they are lobbying the federal government to keep this all in place. But that's a whole separate podcast that we could have.
I said, don't get me going. Don't get me going.
Yeah. The one thing you did not touch on is my favorite way to watch any game that I don't want to pay for, which is if you go, let's say,
go to the pub with the fellas.
That is one way.
Go to B-dubs.
If you go and you open up, and Zach, I don't know about you, Nick. I know you don't have TikTok, but this is actually how I accidentally stumbled across the Chiefs game last week. Was a guy holding a controller, acting like he was playing Madden on TikTok,
seen those.
But it was the Chiefs game
getting
last
around.
week. So he's holding his controller, and he like hit it a couple of times or whatever, acting like he's playing just to not get kicked off.
Sometimes if you go on Reddit. You go on Reddit, you can find YouTube streams like that too, like YouTube Live or whatever.
Yeah.
So not YouTube TV. It's like people live streaming on YouTube.
Yeah. I am terrified of those links. I'm terrified of them. I'm like, I know I'm going to click on this and someone's going to get in here and get stuff.
Yeah. It's now it's hard to like do that. You know what I mean? You're going to get a million pop-ups. If you don't have an ad blocker, do not use the websites that I use. Like it's literally impossible to use them. Yeah. But like, it's really hard to actually get your information stolen because you have to actually enter in most of that information and be like, oh, I got to here's my email and all that stuff. If stuff's popping up, it's annoying. But almost never is it malicious until you start clicking on it or allowing access or adding your details. Just close it.
And let's be honest, we all survived the LimeWire days.
Like,
we're good.
So you're not going to do anything worse to your computer now than you did to your family computer back in the day.
There's nothing.
I had so many ripped off Dane Cook stand-up clips on that thing, dude. Oh yeah.
It was the only.
You know how many Linkin Park songs I downloaded?
It was the only way to get them. But the thing that was funny is just like I had no clue what was happening, so I had no idea that we're like directly connecting to someone else's PC, and whatever we're clicking, like that's coming straight to my grandpa's laptop, HP laptop. That he had to take to Best Buy every other week to get it wiped because me and all my cousins are downloading anything, and then you're going through.
We know what you're downloading.
I will be honest. Some of my cousins probably. I was not at that time. But
Oh yeah, I forgot Steve's listening. Sorry.
no, it's just that was a different time. The LimeWire days. I was a little young for
It
that.
was
But
Wild West. Oh yeah,
but
that's
dude,
fair. I was like 13 when it was popping off. We just got
had
broadband.
But I what I will say is I fell deep down the rabbit hole of trying to perfectly curate my iTunes library. So going on and finding like all of the song details, like the metadata online, pulling it over, finding the perfect album artwork that could go in there. And then it's on your iPod Touch or your iPod Nano screen. And it's like the tiniest little like album artwork, but you had it in
dot
there, right?
Of color. Yeah.
Dude, it used to trigger me so much when I'd spend hours working on that, get it synced up, do whatever. I'm riding in the back of my car, my hood's up, whatever. I got my earbuds in and I'm scrolling. And I see I had a typo in like the name of the artist. And I'd be like, because I only did it at my grandpa's house because our computer at my house was not
on your
fast
way
enough
home.
to do that. So I'm like, I can't fix this until I get back. And of course I didn't have like a notes app or whatever because I didn't even have a phone yet. So I'm like having to remember what song was messed up because I would go manually type it. I didn't know you could like copy paste and do it that way, like get it right one time, paste it. Man, those days were.
That story right there, Sax, perfectly encapsulates why these kids are so soft nowadays. Because you had to go through all that work and suffering at that age to get something that you wanted, and then when you left, internet's over, baby. It's not until you come back again, and now they're just like, this TikTok video that I had wasn't very nice, so I'm gonna go find instantly. Or if they're working on something and they're like, that's not the perfect dog picture I want to trace, can you find a different one? I'm like, lady, if I wanted to color at your age and get a stencil, I had to just pick one out of 5 and then put it on the table, and that's what I had.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you what, there's also something about like having your first like forays into liking girls, liking, whoever. And then
you guys like girls?
Yes.
Gross.
You, dude.
Yeah. Sure do. We saw you in public like a girl one time. So,
don't tell anybody.
Dude.
You kissed a girl in public, dude. That was gross. So
couldn't believe you did that.
It was crazy. But no, the foray into thinking about dating, thinking about doing whatever, and getting on freaking AOL Instant Messenger, and that girl does not get on the computer the entire night, and it will ruin your Friday night, dude. Like you just
she's got some other dude's initials in her profile status or whatever. Dude.
She moves him up on her.
Just make you want to throw up.
She moves him to number 1 on her MySpace top 10. Oh, dude.
You can't do it. You can't do it.
You just go. And what was your only choice? You had to go to your MySpace profile and change a song to something sad and moody.
Oh, yeah.
Emo. Yeah. Some emo music. Yeah.
Some emo music. Yeah.
It hurts the most or Rascal Flatts.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Everyone's first step into HTML, learning how to update their profile.
We call it coding. Yeah, it's coding MySpace profile.
Just going and ripping links off some website, putting it in the background. Again, wide open. I mean, just wide open.
Yeah, no security.
None.
And you get so close to being done, then the phone would ring, and it'd kick you off. Freaking do whatever, dude.
Just stand, and then you just go outside. You just stand up and go outside. Like, I gotta blow off some steam.
Look like the meme from the guy from Narcos, just standing out there looking. Just
Pablo Escobar just sitting on the swing all by himself.
You're like, man, all that work just to try to send a backwards greater than sign and a 3, so you could be like, I love you.
Less than 3.
Yeah, left hand 3. Yeah,
and then. Dude, I don't know. This was not on the topic, but this is just like a visceral memory. And then remembering like when I did get my first phone, and then just like wishing I could go to like my grandparents' house, like to stay the night, so I could talk on the phone like late. Like because we wouldn't text or whatever. And like, you're not saying anything. You have nothing of substance, right? Like nothing to say. You're sitting there and then you're just like, but you feel so like, you're like, oh my gosh, this is what love is. And then like you get a text the next day like, hey, I don't want to be your boyfriend or your girlfriend anymore. Like you hit them with that or what? Like, yeah, I don't know. Someone else is interested. And then you just, like you said, Zach, you just see that shifting of the MySpace. And oh man, that's such a, I don't know, visceral memory.
Oh
So,
yeah. Well,
it makes sense because like when you're talking about organizing all your iTunes files, that clicked in my brain because all of the files that I have on my Plex server, when I download it, I go to the location, the folder location. I make sure that the folder for that file is named properly. It has the date in parentheses. Then I go on to Plex, which thankfully Plex will download the metadata for you. And if it doesn't do it correctly, you can go in and manually click like fix match and search for what you're looking for. And usually you can find. The only ones I haven't been able to find are like obscure stand-up comedy sets that aren't like super big comedians. But then I'll go in and make sure that it has an appropriate poster. Like you can change which poster, the display artwork for it. If it's part of a series like Transformers or Fast and Furious or whatever, I add it to a collection. And then I make sure that collection has its own like collection poster. So it's not just a amalgamation of all the little posters all together. It's a whole thing. I have this whole system that I do to like organize these files. So that makes sense. Now I understand why I do that.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
Wish I could share my screen. I would show you what I'm talking about. All this tism. It's a lot of tism on my screen right now.
Yeah,
just so much.
Well, Zach, that kind of naturally gets there. I'm not sure we put a bow on the whole state of the NBA thing and everything of that sort, but I think we can all agree it's just kind of like a hellscape with all the streaming things of that sort. And that is the one last thing I do want to say on it. Is
we really deviated from that. Sorry,
we did. We got really far away, but that was a very fun conversation. The last thing I want to say about it is for everything the NFL does right, I feel like when you reflect that into some of these other leagues that have so many more games, it just doesn't translate as well. And I feel like these guys got to find with their media deals, these packages that they're doing with Fox, ESPN, whoever, whatever, things like that. It just doesn't translate, right? So like when I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do I watch these playoff games? Okay, it can be difficult at times, like to track down, like, okay, where are the Lions playing? Like I was trying to make sure I could see that. And then where are the Chiefs playing so I can pick that up. But it's going to be one of these core, networks, do whatever. And then, but it's one time a week, right? Like it's one window of time. And the vast majority of them you can catch in red zone. You can do that kind of thing. Whereas the NBA, like you were saying, it's not only trying to track down, okay, where are they playing? Are they on the road? Because if they're on the road, I got to watch them through this service. If they're local, okay, I can catch them through this. And then like, whose login am I using? Or like, is that something that I got to do my own? Things like that. And
I will shout out an app right now, and I don't do often because large app providers like this generally suck. But I use the Yahoo Sports app, and when you set it up, it asks you what your favorite teams are, and you can pick as many favorite teams as you want. I have the Pacers, the Lions, the Colts, Indiana basketball, Michigan basketball, Detroit Red Wings, Arsenal, Detroit Tigers, Indiana Fever, Indiana football, Michigan football. Like those are all the teams that I pick. So when you go on the home app, it'll tell you which one of those teams are playing today. You can click on that game. And the way that they're ordered, it'll tell you if they're home or away. So, for instance, I know Arsenal played at home today. The Pacers were away technically, but they were in Paris. So, were the Spurs really a home team? And the Red Wings are playing right now at home. If you click on it, it'll show you which channels they're being played on.
Oh, okay.
So for instance, the Red Wings are playing on ESPN, Fox Sports Detroit, and whatever the Fox Sports in Tampa Bay is because they're playing the Lightning. And so that's how I keep up with like, okay, who's playing today? Where are they playing? What time? How can I watch it? Which ones am I going to pick?
I got you.
That's just my little, in case you're looking for it.
Yeah, that's good.
Other than that, it's still the Wild West of like how you can actually access that information once you know where they're playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I will say, like you guys were saying earlier, the NBA being on the back of Chuck and Shaq and Michael and stuff. Chuck and Shaq still got the NBA on their back right now because Heather is more interested in the NBA
and when
they do their oh, dude. We loved watching. We were watching the playoffs last year just so we could catch like halftime show after and stuff. Like Heather didn't care that the game was going on. She only cared that she wanted to know when halftime hit so we could watch and stuff because some of those clips. And then
it's like watching the Super Bowl for the commercials.
Exactly.
Right. You want to see Shaq. You want to see Shaq and Chuck rib each other.
Oh, dude, it's so good. And like she loves sending me clips like TikTok, whatever, of them talking about them women, San Antonio and the dirty water down in Galveston and all these things. Like, dude, it cracks me up. I wanted to crack that joke a couple weeks ago, Nick, when Walker was talking about Galveston being the entryway or whatever between like Asia
so far
stuff.
over his head.
Yeah, he wouldn't have had any clue, that dirty water. And then the last thing that comes to mind when I think about Heather and the NBA, slight tangent. We went on our honeymoon. We went to Mexico and we went on an excursion while we were there. And I just didn't eat very much. They had this like buffet type spread on the excursion that we like stopped at and did. Heather ate a wider swath of food and she got some sort of nasty food poisoning from it. And I didn't. But the NBA finals were on because we went right at the beginning of June. Or into May, beginning of June. And she was drinking Gatorade. Like I got her from the little gift shop or whatever, drinking Gatorade. And she said every time they talked about or LeBron got the ball and she saw it, she was trying to get like as much fluid in as
she's playing a hydrating drinking game with LeBron. Yeah.
It was 2018. So it was, I think it was, I don't remember, 2018 NBA finals. Warriors and Cavaliers. Warriors and Cavaliers.
Oh, God dang it. Was that the 3-1 year?
No, that was 4-0 sweep of the Warriors. So, but yeah, that was the year we went. So, but anyways, NBA talk, that's good. That's the most sports talk we've had. So thank you, Zach. We've been able to kind of flex that. So I said on last week's pod, but I'll say it again this week. We're compressing these few weeks here in the beginning of February, kind of crazy with everything, and then Walker's got some crazy deadlines, things going on. Life's insane. So he'll be back. Walker's not going anywhere. He just needed a little hiatus. So Zach was gratefully filled in for us. So Zach, you had one more topic that you kind of laid out for me, and then I had to like kind of get some scope of it when I was reading it. And here's how I summed it up. And I want you to tell me if I've summed it correctly in your head. If not, redirect me. But the vibe I got was children are so incredibly gullible.
Yeah.
That might be a little harsh of a term for it, but I was like, we want to talk about it. Let's talk about it. And let's talk about the things that, this is kind of like a spiritual successor to the white lies conversation we had in one of our earlier pods. Like, what are the things that we believe that were like foundational? And then like we found out later, like, no, that was never true. And it kind of shatters the crack. Did I get that right? Or redirect me if I need to.
No, I think gullible is the perfect word. I don't think that's a bad word. I just think it's important to know. And you're reminded sometimes when you get older that is like you are gullible as a kid. And I guess it also when you're a dad, it's just hilarious. Like when you have a kid and you see like, oh yeah, I remember thinking like that. Because like there were just times like I foundationally believed to my core that color didn't happen until it started happening on TV. Because you see old timey photos, right? Yeah. And it was, and I know you're thinking, you're like, oh, so you grew out of that at like what, 6, 7? No, it was like 13, 14. And it's one of those things where so many questions pop up. But the first one was like, how did no one tell me that? How did that never come up, first of all? And so, like, I just accepted it as a truth. And then I just never questioned it again until I say it one time, like, was that before there was color? And then someone looks at me like, what do you mean when you say that? I'm like, I mean, like, was that before color? Like there was a movie too from when I was a kid. I remember it where during the movie, it must have came out when color was a thing. Cause there was, if you look back on YouTube, there's a bunch of clips of like when color happened. And I remember watching one of those TVs at one of those shows as a kid. It was like a made for TV movie or whatever, and it was on. And then like when a guy got angry, the second he got angry, the screen flipped and it went to color. And I remember when I saw that, I was like, that must have been when color was put into the world. And I said it to someone, I don't even remember who, probably a buddy of mine, and made the mistake of saying that, probably around multiple. And we're like, what do you mean when you say that? And then that led me to think about other ones that are equally as funny to me. I don't know how much my wife would think about that. But like one of hers that I told you guys that I'll just share again just because it's too good not to share. 20 was her cutoff. So that's how I beat her because she was 20 years old. We were together. She was, I believe, pregnant. So she was an adult. And I had to explain to her that Hawaii and Alaska were not right next to each other like they show on the map. And
the little cutouts where it shows them, down in the Pacific.
And the reason why I think this is so cool is because like just like I truly believed that color was a thing that just snapped. I thought she truly believed that Alaska and Hawaii were right next to each other because she saw it on a map. She probably got a test right and was like, all right, done with that, and then moved on. And I was like, surely to God, you guys have those too. Like, it must be a common thing.
I'm sure I do, but I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Yeah, I was bringing this up to Heather because I was like, what are some things? And like our conversation kind of went in the mean direction because she's like, oh, I didn't have any of those. I was like, whatever. I was like, oh, so you didn't have like. She was like, oh, I was a smart kid. And I was like, oh, so you didn't have a irrational, crippling fear of storms. And like, it turned that way because she like had this huge, like irrational phobia of like storms. She's like, well, we lived in Indiana and tornadoes, came through our little town one time. I was like, yeah, that's how it works. But like, you couldn't leave the house. So like it turned mean. So we kind of stopped talking about it. But one thing, sorry, babe, she's not going to listen. But one thing that did come to mind. So it wasn't as like specific as that, but it was kind of like the base belief that those that were older than me actually knew what they were doing. Like not necessarily adults. Like I for sure believe that, but I think a lot of kids believe that. It's like, oh, adults have it together. Growing up, I think that's just an adulthood thing. We realize like, oh, our parents had no clue what they were doing. Like 9 times out of 10, parents have no freaking clue and they were doing the best they can. And so shout out to our parents because even parents who, made bad mistakes and stuff, they probably at their heart, unless they're just like narcissistic and terrible people, like they were probably trying the best that they knew to at the time. But I'm talking about kids that were older than me, like just a little bit. So I had one time I was at my grandpa's house and my grandpa had a pool and then he had a privacy fence and then he had this like nice square yard. Used to play, kickball or whatever in it. And then it was a home run. If you hit it, it was like yard, or a roadway that was like leading to a cul-de-sac. So not a whole lot of through traffic. And so if you hit it in the air into the yard across the road, that was a home run. We would do that. Well, one day, instead, I guess that got too boring for us. We didn't want to play wiffle ball or whatever we were playing. So my cousin, Jared, he said, hey, like I saw Paps had his golf clubs in the in the garage. He's like, let's do that. And we had like tennis balls and like squishy, like stress balls and stuff like that. And he's like, I saw some tees and stuff in there. So we got it and we were hitting. And so we were hitting that same lane, right? So it was like 2 open side yards that were across from each other. So side yard, road, side yard. And the other side yards where we used to hit home runs and that we would count it. So we're kind of using that as like a driving lane, right? And we started at one point, we back up towards the privacy fence and hit further. Well, then I remember one of my oldest cousin, one of his friends pulled up and he parked his car on the road that was between those 2 yards, right? So he just parked it there because that's where, that was additional parking for the house. And he came over and he was hanging out with my other cousin. And I don't remember why I thought this was a good idea, but we were hitting, we were actually doing pretty well. And like, I would play baseball, so I was shanking it all over the place, but like we were hitting it far because we were strong. We were strong enough to do that and get it over into the other yard. So we were feeling good about ourselves. And Jared tells me, he says, hey, he said, we were about to leave or whatever. My parents, I think, had just got there. So I'd seen them walk in the house and kind of hid the golf clubs because we knew we weren't supposed to be doing it, but like hid it. And then we were like, yeah, we're going to finish this off now that we've practiced. We're going to hit real golf balls. And so he puts one down and he smacks the crap out of it. And it goes over the house across the street. So we had been dialing in. I'm like, oh, that was sick. And he's like 2 years older than me or whatever. So I'm like, okay, he hit it that far. It's like, I might not hit it as far, but like I'm going to hit it far. And I kid you not, God gave me a chance. He gave me a chance. I hit the crap out of that ball. It flew straight at the car, hit a piece of wood and went over the car. Did not touch the car. And God gave me a chance. But I shanked it when I did that. And Jared said, one more.
Yeah,
one more.
Teed up another. Obviously, you teed up again.
Teed up again. And that ball went straight into the windshield and shattered that mofo. Mm-hmm. And that thing was gone.
Yep.
Immediately. Clubs down. Jared runs inside the house. Saxon broke the windshield. He ratted me immediately. Of course, I'm a little kid. I'm bawling. Like, could not be crying harder. I'm so terrified. Like, I'm going to die. Like, I just, dude, that was crazy. So that was what came to mind to me was like, it was, in hindsight, it's kids being kids, right? Like, just two kids just being kids doing whatever. But the gullible nature was like, oh, he's older than me, so he's got it under control. Everything's cool, and that is not true.
And that's why when you say gullible, and you're like, I don't know if that's a harsh word. That's what I take from it is like now as a parent with a daughter that's 9, 10. I remember what I was like at that age. I remember what I believed. Yeah, I remember that kind of stuff. So it makes it easier to like empathize with your kid. Because like they're having a tantrum and like the old school way is like snatch them up and beat it out of them, whatever. But like when they're younger, you see that and you're like, I don't know, dude. I didn't even think color was invented until like 1968. Maybe give them a break, Like don't let them burn down a store. Don't let them do anything crazy. But like, yeah, I mean, if they're pissed because their balloon blew away, that's their world, So that's you're 100% right.
Fair.
That's the lesson I always took from it too. Was like, whenever I think of those stories, ultimately, I do this just as a parent. Everything goes through my parent or my filter as a parent, and I'm like, I look at it and I'm like, yeah, I know she's a little bummed out about her, losing a batting glove. To me is like, why are you upset about this right now? I will get other batting gloves. It's going to be okay. And then I remember like, yeah, their world's smaller than ours.
Yeah. Honestly, man, I think that's a great way to think about it. Because let's think right now, and not to go into a dark place, but like think right now, like what would get that response out of us right now? Right? Like the things as adults that could happen to us that would get that the similar response to when I shattered this dude's windshield, right? And I immediately like had this breakdown. Yeah,
shattering somebody's windshield I'd have that same response.
I would feel bad about it. I feel bad about it, but I also know like, hey, okay, we're gonna pay for it. Like we'll take care of it.
$100 or whatever.
Yeah, do that. But like the things, like what is our world now, right? Like the things that encompass that, and it's like the things that we could lose, or the things that like you see that. So I think that's a good way to think of it. Like when your world's like this big, taking something away from a kid, or it's kind of like maybe you guys have opinions on this. I ain't got no kids, so I don't have an opinion on it yet. But like when people would punish their kids on like Christmas or something like that, like and like if they say like, oh, you're not getting presents, and then they follow through on that, and I'm like, well, I remember as a child like Christmas is the only reason I was living. You know what I mean? Like that's the only thing that I lived for the entire year. Right. Like I was locked in for this. So like the idea of missing out on that, not that I'm saying that that it should be about that, or that's the right way to approach something like that, but it just was right. Like that's just how, as a kid, you're like locked in on like what presents you're going to get and being so excited. And in our house, that's kind of like when we got it was like birthday, Christmas. Like those were when we got the big items, things of that sort. So maybe you guys have more to say about that, but like that was my world. And so like having that taken away was like, would have been like very traumatic. So
Nick, I don't know who's nicer, you or me, but you go first.
I don't know. I'm trying to think. I think, you know what? I've seen you interacting with Bree, and you've been around me with Reagan and Riley. I think we're pretty even.
Yeah, true. I
Because
believe,
you know my philosophy
go
is
ahead.
like they're small people, right? Like I'm not babying them. Like
Correct.
a little, maybe occasionally. Like like Reagan fell down earlier. She was playing in the snow in the front yard when we were going to get in the car, and she like slipped and fell, and she's crying. She said she was hurt, but I know that she was just embarrassed about it. I'm like, all right, come on, you don't really need to do all that, but I'm not gonna get mad that you're throwing a fit. But yeah, for the most part, I'll just tell them straight up, like,
Yeah.
don't do that. That's irritating to other people. Why are you bothering other people with what you're doing or whatever? Do whatever you want. That's fine. Don't hurt other people and stuff like that. So, we don't. I don't know. It's the punishment thing is kind of weird because I joke with them all the time and tell them they're grounded. Like every day, at least once, I'll tell them they're grounded. And so I'll be like, Reagan, you're grounded. She'll go, no, I'm not. I'm like, yep, you're grounded for forever. And last year before her birthday, I tried to convince her that she was grounded from her birthday. She wasn't going to turn 8 and that she was going to have to do second grade again. She was like, you can't. Oh no. I said, you're not going to turn 8. You're going to be grounded from your birthday. You're going to be 7 for another year. She goes, I can't go to third grade if I'm not 8. And I said, you're not going to go to third grade. You're doing second grade again.
I guess you better figure it out, dude. Yeah.
even though that's probably that, if that really happened, that'd be probably more of a punishment on you than her. So
Yeah.
that's another year.
Right.
So.
Yeah. I mean, my opinions on it, like I won't lie. I mean, they're pretty strong. Like Emily and I both kind of, the way you put it, Nick's pretty good, but like, I just believe in it being appropriate. Like when you punish and like Nick said, you're dealing with a little person, and just because they're your kid, you may be their example and you may be their leader, but that doesn't mean you're a tyrant and you can just do whatever you want to them. So you're still raising someone that's eventually going to have to go out in the world and deal with conflict, deal with disappointing people, deal with all the things, that you have to deal with as an adult. They're going to have to deal with it. So you're training them on how to do that. So yeah, I mean, if it's a minor offense, it's a minor punishment, or it may not even be a punishment. It would just be hey, let's do this. It also depends on the kid. Like you have some kids that, like Briella came out that way, stock settings. Like I could talk to her, she gets it. Like I talked to her when I would push her around in a stroller when she was a kid. I would talk to her like this. I'd be like, "That's a bird. That's a robin." Actually,
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
Yep.
I never talked to her in a way that was, in my view, degrading. Or if someone talked to me that way, I'd be like, "Why are you talking to me like that? Just talk to me." Because I knew one day I was going to want to be able to talk to her about stuff, and I wanted her to know how to talk. And so because of that, and then the only other, I guess, hard rule we follow is if you're doing something that's annoying me as your dad, I know it annoys other people. So like,
especially people who don't have kids.
Correct. Like, like I love you more than anything on this earth. And
I want you to stop that. Yeah.
I don't want to hear your voice right now.
Yeah.
And I really would like it if you quit doing what you're doing. So I know when you get older and you do this kind of stuff in front of people that aren't me, that don't love you more than anything in the world, you're going to get some negative reactions. So I don't know. I guess it depends on a lot of different things, your philosophy, or what your priorities are for your kids. And mine is to make sure that when she's an adult that she can handle life. That's my first priority. Now, obviously I do it in a fun way as much as I can. I try to keep it as lighthearted as possible, but ultimately I'm like, I want you to be strong and capable when you leave the house. And if what you're doing isn't helping you be that, then I'm going to steer you in the right direction. And depending on what it is that you're doing will depend on what I do. I mean, I'm not, like you said, Sax, to your point, I would never the day before Christmas, knowing how small, like to bring it back to how small the kid's world is, I would never go to Brielle and be like, "You got a C on a test? That sucks, dude. Santa doesn't come for C's. So nothing for you." So it would never do something like that. But,
Sure.
You just have to go through all of the different, understand where they're coming from, what they're going through as kids, what you want for them when they get older, and then treat them like how you would want to be treated. Would you want some dude just screaming at you because you accidentally spilled some milk? Probably not. You'd be like, dude, I didn't want to do that either. So, as long as she gets a rag, picks it up, it's just kind of like
I've talked about this before. I don't know if I've talked about this on the podcast, but I've talked to my parents about this, but like I was always with my mom. Like if I was not in sports and stuff like that, like I was going around, whether it's to church and things like that. So I was with my mom all the time. And my dad, like one thing that I really appreciate about him is he has always been my mom's like ultimate protector. And he's always fought for my mom, right? So like he's not gonna let anyone talk to her wrong, do the stuff like that. And some of that has to do with the fact that my grandmother, so my dad's mom passed away pretty young. So I think younger than my parents are right now. So passed away. I got a few years with him, stuff like that. And he always told me, he's like, I didn't treat your grandma how I wish I would have when she was alive. The way I treated her, the way I acted and stuff of that sort. But what I will say about that is there were times where in hindsight, I'm like, okay, I was set up in a bad way, because when you're with anyone long enough, right? Like I'm going through preteen, teenager, years, whatever. I'm with my mom all the time. You're going to get frustrated when you're with someone all the time. You're going to say something you don't mean, do whatever. And my dad, he had like the ultimate radar for he could tell when my mom and I weren't happy together. And my mom, to her credit, she wouldn't necessarily like go, at least to my knowledge, she wouldn't go like immediately offer up the information like, hey, I kind of like sassed her or did whatever. But my dad would get it out of her and knew. And dude, I was in trouble all the time for talking back to my mom, do something like that. And I'm like son of a gun, I'm always with this woman. Like I love her to death, but like we're always together. You're together with people all the time. I mean, the amount of times Heather and I are snapping at each other just because we're hungry. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and like we go eat Mexican food and we're good after. Like, but like I love, like you said, Zach. Like I love her more than anything in the world. But like sometimes I don't want to look at her. Like I need a little bit away.
Leave me alone. Yeah.
It's like, dude, can we not do this right now and then come back and be like, hey, I'm sorry, and like we squash it. And to culminate on that, I also, as a child, like preteen, teenager days, I was so stubborn. And boys, I don't know what this was. I could not, there were times where I physically, in my body, I could not formulate the words, I'm sorry. I couldn't do it. Like I knew I was wrong. And I just
still
couldn't do it.
Struggle.
Yeah.
If I have to, it's a problem sometimes.
Yeah, that's testosterone.
I usually just go with my bad.
My bad. Oh, the words, just specifically the words. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
yeah.
There's the whole psychology behind it, but like my brain just goes,
yeah,
you don't have to say that. They know.
they
that's not the point. The point
but it is amazing.
Hear you.
And what I will say for anyone who does struggle with that, because I struggle with it for a very long time. This is something that, do I think everyone needs to have like Christian premarital counseling? No. Should everyone have some sort of premarital counseling with someone who has been married for a long time and who can speak into your life and who actually wants the best for you, right? Like you're not just someone who's on their docket and like, oh, I guess on this day I'm going to be marrying them. And so like part of what, the church I'm a part of says I have to do premarital counseling with them. Like, that's not who I'm talking about. Like if you're going to get married and you're going to meet with someone, I think it's very valuable, because he did happen to be one of my pastors, but like he was also just a great friend, and he spoke into Heather and I's life. And we talked about that. We talked about the fact that I struggled like with apologizing. And I remember early on, Heather and I having some conversations, some things where like oftentimes, and I've heard other people say this, like when you're married or whatever, like you can have spats, but like if you're in an argument, like there's no winning, right? There's just like, we're kind of walking away from it. I think it's true. I think it's true. And if you actually feel that way, I'd love to hear what you say, but
no,
there's not like a clear winner and loser, right? Because like, if I win this argument, I'm losing in another way, right?
Yeah,
like it's not like
always a loss. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a loss for everyone. But the way that you both win is that apologizing, like through that lens, right? Like, so if it goes too far, knowing, okay, it's time to step away. You can physically step away if you need to. And then being able to do that. And there were times early on where like Heather and I were kind of in this mindset of like, oh, we're not wrong and we're not apologizing. Like, I don't care how that made you feel. And I sat her down at one point and I said, we're not doing this. I was like, we got this was in the first year of marriage. I was
You're
like, we
gonna
got
say
a long
sorry
road
right now.
No, I just said, I was like, we need to be quick to apologize. And that's something that we had talked about in that premarital counseling. And I'm very happy we did. And that's something I am very proud in our marriage we have enacted and we've continued to do is being quick to apologize. I say all that to say, when I was a kid, I couldn't do that. I could not apologize for anything. The amount of times I was wrong, sorry, mom and dad. See, I can apologize now. I couldn't back then. I could not get the words
sound
out.
like you meant it. Say it like you mean it.
Yeah.
I am sorry. I'm sorry for all this.
I got a lot of that. I don't know about you, Zach, but I got a lot of that fighting with my brother. Well, you might have gotten it fighting with your sister, Sax, but like, you apologize to your brother. Sorry. Say it like you mean it. Sorry. Well, my stepmom was talking about it while we were in Florida recently. She used to make us, we would get in fights and like wouldn't apologize. She would sit us down and make us say something nice about the other person. And there were times where it's like we're sitting there for a long time because nobody would want to say anything, or it would be like he's really good at playing sports or whatever, like stupid stuff. Like, but yeah, she's like, you guys have to say something nice about each other, or we're not done with this.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that saying I'm sorry, being quick to apologize. I feel like that's a human thing. I mean, I'm sure there's probably temperament differences or something where it's easier, but no, I mean, even to this day, like I have to remind myself why I'm sorry. Even if I've already gotten there on my own, as soon as I'm in front of whoever I need to apologize to, it's like one of those things where I'm like, yeah, but look at your dumb face. I shouldn't have to apologize. It's like built into you. You know what I mean? And but no,
as a Midwesterner, it's easier for me to apologize to a stranger for accidentally bumping into him. Like, oh, sorry, man, my bad.
Yeah.
Instead of somebody that you love.
Right. Well, that's
like,
but Sax hit on it too when he was talking about that. I've had so many of those conversations, Sax, with people because my wife and I we're not legally married. We're a Nick and Kristen a couple years behind. So we've been together for 10 years. We have a child. We've moved out of state together. We've bought many houses. We've built a house. We've done everything that is more legally, or everything that is as legally as what would you call it, tying, or as opposed to getting married. And that's one of the things you hit on is what I always used to tell people, where I was like, I don't really think that getting married is going to change anything in terms of our relationship. I think the changes and how the level of your relationship and your connection and all that other stuff, that comes from doing work either together, or in your instance, kind of like you said, with churches, how they have premarital kind of programs and stuff.
Sure.
Because a lot of those things, people never talk about those things when they're dating. You date very shallow. You're like, oh, you're attractive. I like you. You like watching movies. I like watching movies. But I think when you're talking about marriage, or really just a lifelong relationship in general, we're kind of like you said, and we've been talking about, you're going to be around this person every single day. So you can't just rely on, oh, I love them and they're pretty. It's like, yeah, that'll get you in the door, but that won't keep you there. You have to be able to do a lot of more deeply rooted things. And again, kids teach you all these things. That Emily and I were boneheads until we had, like, Bree got to the age where it was like, 4, 5, 6, 7, and you more see that direct impact. You're like, oh man, Bree doesn't like to apologize either. Huh. I wonder where she got that from.
Yeah.
But
it happens. It's the first time I ever experienced like spending too much time with somebody was when I moved to IU with my best friend Mitch. We hung out all the time in high school. We were together all the time, like in marching band. We hang out after, all that stuff. We were roommates our freshman year, and about like a month in, I just remember like, I fucking hate this guy. Why? I mean, for no reason. And it was for like a day. We argued about something stupid, and then after that, it was fine. Because I recognized it. I was like, why am I getting so upset? This is my best friend. Why am I so mad right now? It's because we are together all the time.
Right.
It's not how it's supposed to be.
Yeah,
correct.
Luckily, I don't think I've really gotten to that point with Kristen, which is shocking because we both work from home. So
Right.
we're with each other 24/7. But like, I mean, we annoy each other and then somebody will get mad and then like 20 minutes later, they'll be fine or whatever. But
Yeah.
I'm not saying sorry. I don't, no, I'm not doing it. You can't make me.
You can't make me.
That's
Who's going to make me? You?
very
No
true.
way.
Yeah.
I'm way stronger than her. So it's like, what's she going to do? Even though we argue about this, I think she legitimately believes that she's stronger than I am.
She does.
Which is crazy. But
also,
I mean, whatever.
Also, that's not a bad place to be in. Let her believe it. Because, I mean, she can say it to whoever and they'll be like, oh, okay. You know, whatever. But like, there's something. It's not bad having her being confident. That,
the confidence is great.
Strength.
It's just misplaced. Because if it came down to it, she's going to get wrecked.
Oh, yeah.
If she had to fight me, if we had to legitimately fight each other, it's going to be bad.
Yeah,
actually, she might actually win. I might not have it in me.
No,
like I know that physically I could.
No, but Nick, the thing about you is you're a hustle guy. So she's going to know you were there.
The hustle place.
You make the hustle place. It's like
impact.
You're like
the extra effort.
The Michigan Wolverine is the perfect logo for a Nick team because the Wolverine doesn't always win, but you're going to know he was there. That's Nick.
Or a honey badger, for instance, which is the nickname sake for Daniel Ricciardo, who I'm wearing a sweatshirt of.
Shout out.
That's a common joke that Zach and I make on the golf course a lot because we lose a lot of golf balls to creeks and woods, and so you're making the hustle play to go get your ball back out of the water or whatever.
That's awesome.
Oh yeah.
Well, boys, this has been awesome. It's a very different vibe because we got to talk about sports ball a whole lot and stuff. Ball. But Zach, again, appreciate you, man. Appreciate you coming in, stepping up when we need a third chair. So
absolutely,
Nick and I's ugly mugs can only go so far. So we needed a third one to balance it out. So
that's right.
So, well, once again, guys, if you're still listening, we appreciate you. Find us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. Just search ForcedToPod, all one word. You'll find us there. And then if you would like to continue in the discussion, use our Discord link, bit.ly/ForcedToPod Discord. You can join that, join the chat. You'll find different podcasts or different channels that relate to different topics and things that we like to talk about. So we got one for loud cars if you're into racing, video games if you're into that, and everything in between. So we appreciate you guys listening. Zach, once again, thanks, man. Nick, thanks again showing up. 2 nights in a row, doubleheader, knocked it out of the park. So we'll be back in a few weeks. Yep, doing this thing. So till next time, thank you guys.
See you guys.